The Feast of Sultán, Sovereignty.
When I was still a child and had not yet attained the age of maturity, my father made arrangements in Tehran for the marriage of one of my older brothers. And as customary in that city, the festivities lasted for 7 days and 7 nights. On the last day, it was announced that the play Shah Sultan Salim would be presented. A large number of princes, dignitaries, and notables of the capital gathered for the occasion. I was sitting in one of the upper rooms of the building and observing the scene. Presently, a tent was pitched in the courtyard, and before long, some small human-like figures, each appearing to be no more than about a handspan in height, were seen to emerge from it and raise the call, "His Majesty is coming! Arrange the seats at once!" Other figures then came forth, some of whom were seen to be engaged in sweeping, others in sprinkling water, and thereafter another who was announced as the chief town crier. He raised his call and bade the people assemble for an audience with the king. Next, several groups of figures made their appearance and took their places. The first attired in hats and sashes after the Persian fashion, the second wielding battle axes, and the third comprising a number of footmen and executioners carrying bastonados. Finally, there appeared, arrayed in regal majesty and crowned with a royal diadem, a kingly figure, bearing himself with the utmost haughtiness and grandeur, at turns advancing and pausing in his progress, who proceeded with great solemnity, poise, and dignity to seat himself upon his throne. At that moment, a volley of shots was fired, a fanfare of trumpets was sounded, and king and tent were enveloped in a pall of smoke. When it had cleared, the king, ensconced upon his throne, was seen surrounded by a suite of ministers, princes, and dignitaries of state who, having taken their places, were standing at attention in his presence. A captured thief was then brought before the king, who gave the order that the offender should be beheaded. Without a moment's delay, the chief executioner cut off the thief's head, whence a blood-like liquid came forth. After this, the king held audience with his court, during which intelligence was received that a rebellion had broken out on a certain frontier. Thereupon the king reviewed his troops and dispatched several regiments, supported by artillery, to quell the uprising. A few minutes later, cannons were heard booming from behind the tent, and it was announced that a battle had been engaged. This youth regarded the scene with great amazement. When the royal audience was ended, the curtain was drawn, and after some 20 minutes, a man emerged from behind the tent carrying a box under his arm. "What is this box?" I asked him, "and what was the nature of this display?" "All this lavish display and these elaborate devices," he replied, "the king, the princes, and the ministers, their pomp and glory, their might and power, everything you saw, are now contained within this box. I swear by my Lord who, through a single word of his mouth, hath brought into being all created things. Ever since that day, all the trappings of the world have seemed in the eyes of this youth akin to that same spectacle. They have never been, nor will they ever be, of any weight and consequence, be it to the extent of a grain of mustard seed. How greatly I marvel that men should pride themselves upon such vanities, whilst those possessed of insight, ere they witness any evidence of human glory, perceive with certainty the inevitability of its waning. Never have I looked upon anything save that I have seen extinction before it, and God really is a sufficient witness. It behoveth everyone to traverse this brief span of life with sincerity and fairness. Should one fail to attain unto the recognition of Him who is the eternal truth, let him at least conduct himself with reason and justice. Ere long, these outward trappings, these visible treasures, these earthly vanities, these arrayed armies, these adorned vestures, these proud and overweening souls, all shall pass into the confines of the grave, as though into that box. In the eyes of those possessed of insight, all this conflict, contention, and vainglory hath ever been, and will ever be, like unto the play and pastimes of children. Take heed, and be not of them that see and yet deny.
Man should know his own self and recognize that which leadeth unto loftiness or lowliness, glory or abasement, wealth or poverty. Having attained the stage of fulfillment and reached his maturity, man standeth in need of wealth, and such wealth as he acquireth through crafts or possessions is commendable and praiseworthy in the estimation of men of wisdom, and especially in the eyes of servants who dedicate themselves to the education of the world and to the edification of its peoples. They are, in truth, cup-bearers of the life-giving water of knowledge and guides unto the ideal way. They direct the peoples of the world to the straight path and acquaint them with that which is conducive to human upliftment and exaltation. The straight path is the one which guideth man to the dayspring of perception and to the dawning place of true understanding, and leadeth him to that which will redound to glory, honor, and greatness. Baha'u'llah. Whoso ariseth among you to teach the cause of his Lord, let him, before all else, teach his own self, that his speech may attract the hearts of them that hear him. Unless he teacheth his own self, the words of his mouth will not influence the heart of the seeker. Take heed, O people, lest ye be of them that give good counsel to others, but forget to follow it themselves. The words of such as these, and beyond the words the realities of all things, and beyond these realities the angels that are nigh unto God, bring against them the accusation of falsehood. Baha'u'llah. O befriended stranger, the candle of thine heart is lighted by the hand of my power. Quench it not with the contrary winds of self and passion. The healer of all thine ills is remembrance of me. Forget it not. Make my love thy treasure and cherish it even as thy very sight and life. Baha'u'llah. O my servants, could ye apprehend with what wonders of my munificence and bounty I have willed to entrust your souls, ye would, of a truth, rid yourselves of attachment to all created things, and would gain a true knowledge of your own selves, a knowledge which is the same as the comprehension of mine own being. Ye would find yourselves independent of all else but me, and would perceive with your inner and outer eye, and as manifest as the revelation of my effulgent name, the seas of my loving kindness and bounty moving within you. Suffer not your idle fancies, your evil passions, your insincerity and blindness of heart to dim the luster or stain the sanctity of so lofty a station. Ye are even as the bird which soareth with the full force of its mighty wings and with complete and joyous confidence through the immensity of the heavens until, impelled to satisfy its hunger, it turneth longingly to the water and clay of the earth below it, and, having been entrapped in the mesh of its desire, findeth itself impotent to resume its flight to the realms whence it came. Powerless to shake off the burden weighing on its sullied wings, that bird, an inmate of the heavens, is now forced to seek a dwelling place upon the dust. Wherefore, O my servants, defile not your wings with the clay of waywardness and vain desires. and suffer them not to be stained with the dust of envy and hate, that ye may not be hindered from soaring in the heavens of my divine knowledge. Baha'u'llah. O friends, it behooveth you to refresh and revive your souls through the gracious favors which in this divine, this soul-stirring springtime are being showered upon you. The day star of his great glory hath shed its radiance upon you, and the clouds of his limitless grace have overshadowed you. How high the reward of him that hath not deprived himself of so great a bounty, nor failed to recognize the beauty of his best beloved in this his new attire. Watch over yourselves, for the evil one is lying in wait, ready to entrap you. Gird yourselves against his wicked devices, and, led by the light of the name of the all-seeing God, make your escape from the darkness that surroundeth you. Let your vision be world-embracing, rather than confined to your own self. The evil one is he that hindereth the rise and obstructeth the spiritual progress of the children of men. Baha'u'llah. That the heart is the throne in which the revelation of God, the All-Merciful, is centered, is attested by the holy utterances which we have formally revealed. Among them is this saying, "Earth and heaven cannot contain me. What can alone contain me is the heart of him that believeth in me, and is faithful to my cause." How often hath the human heart, which is the recipient of the light of God and the seat of the revelation of the All-Merciful, erred from him who is the source of that light and the wellspring of that revelation. It is the waywardness of the heart that removeth it far from God and condemneth it to remoteness from him. Those hearts, however, that are aware of his presence are close to him, and are to be regarded as having drawn nigh unto his throne. Consider, moreover, how frequently doth man become forgetful of his own self, whilst God remaineth, through his all-encompassing knowledge, aware of his creature, and continueth to shed upon him the manifest radiance of his glory. It is evident, therefore, that in such circumstances he is closer to him than his own self. He will indeed so remain forever, for whereas the one true God knoweth all things, perceiveth all things, and comprehendeth all things, mortal man is prone to err, and is ignorant of the mysteries that lie enfolded within him. Baha'u'llah. O Son of Desire, the learned and the wise have for long years striven and failed to attain the presence of the All-Glorious. They have spent their lives in search of him, yet did not behold the beauty of his countenance. Thou, without the least effort, didst attain thy goal, and without search hast obtained the object of thy quest. Yet, notwithstanding, thou didst remain so wrapped in the veil of self that thine eyes beheld not the beauty of the Beloved, nor did thy hand touch the hem of his robe. Ye that have eyes, behold and wonder. Baha'u'llah. Thine eye is my trust. Suffer not the dust of vain desires to becloud its luster. Thine ear is a sign of my bounty. Let not the tumult of unseemly motives turn it away from my word that encompasseth all creation. Thine heart is my treasury. Allow not the treacherous hand of self to rob thee of the pearls which I have treasured therein. Thine hand is a symbol of my loving kindness. Hinder it not from holding fast unto my guarded and hidden tablets. Unasked, I have showered upon thee my grace. Unpetitioned, I have fulfilled thy wish. In spite of thy undeserving, I have singled thee out for my richest, my incalculable favors. O my servants, be as resigned and submissive as the earth, that from the soil of your being there may blossom the fragrant, the holy and multicolored hyacinths of my knowledge. Be ablaze as the fire, that ye may burn away the veils of heedlessness and set aglow, through the quickening energies of the love of God, the chilled and wayward heart. Be light and untrammeled as the breeze, that ye may obtain admittance into the precincts of my court, my inviolable sanctuary. Baha'u'llah. They are all the manifestation of the beginning and the end, the first and the last, the seen and hidden, all of which pertain to him who is the innermost spirit of spirits and eternal essence of essences. And were they to say, we are the servants of God, this also is a manifest and indisputable fact. For they have been made manifest in the uttermost state of servitude, a servitude the like of which no man could possibly attain. Thus, in moments in which these essences of being were deeply immersed beneath the oceans of ancient and everlasting holiness, or when they soared to the loftiest summits of divine mysteries, they claimed their utterance to be the voice of divinity, the call of God Himself. Were the eye of discernment to be opened, it would recognize that in this very state they have considered themselves utterly effaced and non-existent in the face of Him who is the all-pervading, the incorruptible. Methinks they have regarded themselves as utter nothingness, and deemed their mention in that court an act of blasphemy. For the slightest whispering of self within such a court is an evidence of self-assertion and independent existence. In the eyes of them that have attained unto that court, such a suggestion is itself a grievous transgression. How much more grievous would it be were aught else to be mentioned in that presence, were man's heart, his tongue, his mind, or his soul to be busied with anyone but the well-beloved, were his eyes to behold any countenance other than his beauty, were his ear to be inclined to any melody but his voice, and were his feet to tread any way but his way. In this day the breeze of God is wafted, and His Spirit hath pervaded all things. Such is the outpouring of His grace that the pen is stilled and the tongue is speechless. Baha'u'llah, the Kitabi Khan.